We're going to talk till we get people over here. Keep on talking.
Hi, David.
Hello, Matthew. How are you?
I'm good. I'm a little confused. It's almost June. I'm on campus, and I'm doing a podcast. We typically are off on the summers. Why am I not in my home?
Because this is the big Mountain Cat Media, Music, and More reunion edition of the Tuck Shop podcast. That's why. You couldn't do it without you, buddy.
We did talk about this, didn't we? No, it's a great event. It's been really fun to kind of tour some folks around campus. This is the Tuck Shop podcast. For those of you who are picking us, this is the first episode you're listening to. I'm typically always on, as is David. Has some pretty cool things going on here today. I think it's also pretty neat that, like I told Sarah this morning, that there's still people, we haven't really talked since the end of term, there's still people talking about our my speech at graduation.
Oh, they are?
Well, we are right now.
Okay.
So,
well, there you go. It makes it official.
It makes it official.
We're talking about Matt's speech at
I
graduation.
told her I was going to use that joke this morning. Look how embarrassed she is.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Thank
I
you.
liked it. Did you write that?
Yes.
Did you write that?
Yeah, I had speech writers and everything coming
I thought we had writers for this podcast. Did we not?
Trust me. If we had writing money, we wouldn't be doing this.
Free T-shirts.
I didn't even get a T-shirt yet.
Well, then you're fired.
No, that's okay. No, this has been a really cool event. Until we get to this point so far on a Sunday or Saturday afternoon, what have we seen already?
Well, we've seen a lot, but you know what? I'll talk a little bit about what we've seen, but man, what I have heard, the stories are they're amazing. I mean, it's like one after the other, from whether it's programming board, advocate. Actually, I bumped in. Where did you go? Miss Yost is here from the TV station. So it was kind of neat to get a WUPJ TV here. But what we've seen, so last night we had our mixer. So we had a mixer, about 35 people came out. We mixed at the LLC. This morning we had a mimosa brunch, which was rather popular.
Good.
Considering it was a mimosa brunch. We just got finished up our tours, and everybody laughs because they're like, so from 1 to 6 you got activity, or 1 to 5 you have activities, and tours are in there. How long can this tour be? And it's a 3-hour, pretty robust tour where it's very interactive, and it's neat because you get to hear a lot of the different stories.
I tell you what, I was very grateful that no one in my group wanted to go see the log cabin.
Oh,
That's
man.
a hike down to the hill. I wasn't going to do it.
My group just wanted to go down and smell the log cabin.
We talked about that through Krebs, that there's a distinct smell that these built. Not bad. It's just there's like an old book.
An old something.
Okay. Before we get talk to some folks and hear some stories and have them recorded and out there for the rest of this time, not just with us, if you are a group that isn't Advocate Programming Board, but you say, boy, you know what? This sounds like a lot of fun. How can other groups that are UPJ affiliated belong?
Contact me, DGJ7 at pitt.edu. And let me explain a little bit how we did this. So this is second one we've done this way. It's a 2-day event. So we were able to get lodging at the LLC. So you kind of came in Friday night, you stayed over Friday night, or you could stay over Friday night and Saturday night. So it was it's more than just come up for the day. If you're coming from distance, I know we've got some people from South Carolina, New Hampshire, California. It's not a turnaround and head home, as well as Lancaster and Erie area. So if you're going to make a weekend of it, we've kind of designed these so you can stay, and it's extremely reasonable. I mean, It's less than what you'd pay to stay at a hotel. The food's very good. And again, like you can stay at I don't care, Best Western Holiday Inn, but you're not going to get the stories that we've heard here over this weekend so far. So bonus.
So, again, reach out to you via email. Again, all our contact information for both David and myself are always in the description of any of these shows. Really, the only thing I want to plug also out there is end of July 25th, is our upcoming Pirates Night, UPJ at the Pirates, playing the Diamondbacks. So come out. That link will be there as well if you want to come out and hang out. We're going to be there either way. And honestly, by the time the end of July rolls around, we may take up a collection from the group that goes and might buy the team.
Yeah.
I'd be really good running an MLB team.
There we go.
Or horrible. But that wouldn't be a change.
Free uniforms would be cool.
There you go. That's all we want. Free perks at the ballpark.
Yep.
Nice. All right. Well, very grateful to have a whole group of people who are much more media savvy than David and I. I do want to mention, though, real quick, David, you are very happy that this event. Like, this is your group. Like, this is your reunion, too. So I just want to say how nice it is to see you happy.
We had 45 people show up. And the neat thing about it is it's everything from the 70s to the mid-2000s. So it's not just, sometimes you get these groups and it's like, okay, great, it's everybody from one era. It's so cool. Tonight at the dinner, we've got 5 programming board students showing up, which is like, told these guys, man, you want to listen to some stories, you want to hear it from the pros. Yeah. This is a place you want to be. So you're right, Matt. My degree was journalism. I was a member of the Advocate, the programming board, and the radio station. So it's funny because we were talking at lunch or at brunch, and it was like, man, you connect with these souls because we all have similar story, just whether it ends in an indictment or it ends in they let me off. That's the only things that are different. But there's a real cool sense, and we kind of talked about it at the brunch. You came here, and whether you were on the radio station, the TV station, the newspaper, you went in every day like it was Rolling Stone magazine. Like you were going to be like Hunter S. Thompson, man. You were going to, you're going to give it everything you had. If you were doing radio, you did your playlist. You were, if you were doing TV, it was the real deal. I think it was all because I mentioned at brunch that we all knew we weren't going to have jobs with a degree in journalism when we got out, so we were going to make the best of it while we were here. But yeah, it really hits, some spots in me that it's good to see. Because when you go to school, and I'm going to kind of wrap it up here real quick, believe it or not, when you go to school here, you get kind of tunnel vision. You get tunnel vision in your year or what you did, and then you realize, like, wow, there was actually people that came before me and so many that came after me that had similar experiences. So
no, it's just real cool to see. So, who do we have joining us? Introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, I'm Becky Markovitz. I'm a UPJ graduate, an alumni, and a former Advocate editor-in-chief. So excited to be here and get to connect with people and see old friends and meet new ones.
I'm Rick Darubis, class of 2001, and I ran WUPJ 1610 AM for 3 years.
We are out on the world on the internet now.
It's a lot has changed since the 1610 AM WUPJ. I appreciate the fact that you dug up that board. It was fun to go see the board. I do think it was the last board probably at WUPJ, and I had some responsibility in putting it in that place, so it was kind of cool. And this is it is cool, and the internet obviously has changed so much about the radio business. But I was telling a couple of people here, and Becky and I knew each other in college, and she was doing her Advocate thing, and I was also a journalism major, so I would contribute now and then, but I was not great about showing up there because I decided to throw my life into the radio station. And thank God I did, because it turned into my entire career. I managed to, my goal in life was to find a job where I never had to wear pants. And I did, and it was because I got the opportunity, and a place that a lot of people don't get the space to become a manager of some sort in college. Like, you might manage the local this or the local that, but I got to manage a radio station, and I believe put it in a better place than I inherited it. And when I went out into the world to get an internship, I ended up at WDVE. And then, once you have, okay, this guy's managed this college radio station and he has call letters like WDVE on his resume, it opened up some amazing doors for me. And even though I am a little burnt that it is not here at the moment and it is now a bank, I am forever grateful for that opportunity. And I have nothing but glowing things to say about my time here. It was super cool. And I do have a lot of stories. I mean, none as good as Becky watching the sunrise every Saturday morning at the Advocate out there. You had the best window.
Nobody likes nerdiness more than everybody who gets to hear these stories. But yes, if you want to rock out to nerdiness, I can hang with the stories. But I think to what you guys are saying, I got everything I needed to follow my career everywhere I wanted to go in this room. Like, I feel like when you talk about management, I didn't know I wanted to be a manager until I was at the Advocate. Like, it wasn't until I left there and I realized I've run a newsroom. I've been a sports editor. I've been a news editor. I've been and that was before I had a full-time job. So when you think about that, like, when you get that as your motivation and where you start to run from, you don't slow down from there. Like, it sets you at a pace that you want to keep going with. So I'm just so grateful for Johnstown's journalism program and the media training here in general, and all the people who really pushed us to take it as if it was serious, as if every police blotter on campus was a real police blotter, you know? It wasn't, but we treated it that way.
Yeah. What's the coming into campus? Let's talk about some alumni stuff. You come into campus as students. What first drew you to UPJ as a school?
I mean, it looked like it was in a woodland village, and I was just a little fairy living in a dream world. So, yeah, I mean, that was the first thing, too. You walk into Pitt Johnstown, and it's just beautiful.
Yeah, pretty much the same for me. Growing up in Clairton, Pennsylvania, my parents owned a bar called the Millgate Bar. I mean, I legitimately grew up watching sludge being thrown into the river next to my house. And when I had an opportunity to come to Pitt Johnstown and check it out, and I was like, this is like living in the forest. And really, outside of, full foliage trips, as my father would call them, where you jump in the car and drive towards the West Virginia border and go, oh, look at the trees, and then go back to Clairton. I didn't get a chance to grow up in an environment like that, and coming here and just being able to, and I came here initially the first time in the fall when it's just absolutely perfect, like right before the snow starts on Halloween and ends the day you move out. But it was, it was kind of, it just kind of had this serenity about it that I had hoped to find, and I had no idea that radio would end up be my career at that time, but it was a place I could come and play hockey and just be educated at the University of Pittsburgh, but not the one I knew, the one that was like in this enchanted little forest.
So you didn't know you wanted to do radio? You wanted to come here to study, but didn't know how
and trust me, I didn't want to study, and you gave us the tour, and I'll be the first to admit, I said I was great at being at college. I wasn't great at being in college. Those are different things. I loved being here, and that was really the reason I probably forced myself to stay here long enough to actually get a degree. I was not an overly academic, motivated individual, but I loved being here. And so I honestly feel like there were a lot of cases I did just enough to stay here academically so I could do 10 times as much to be on the radio station and run it, to go ahead and go, oh, this is what I want to do. But initially, no, I had no idea. I played hockey and I played rugby, which was a lot of fun. And the experience, like, you don't get to play rugby in high school, at least you didn't back in the mid-'90s, so I had no idea that was the thing you could do. And I actually loved it so much into a concussion that damn near ended my life. And so my friend, and then I knew I couldn't play hockey or rugby anymore, and he was like, join the radio station. And I legitimately looked at him, I was like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Why would you even create such a stupid thought in your head? And he was like, well, you love music. And I said, yeah, I do. And I remember going into the studio that was right next to the tuck shop for the first time. I really think you could only hear it in the cafeteria. And I remember hitting the microphone button for the first time, and just whatever it was that I said, and I even get goosebumps talking about it, I was like, oh my God, people have to listen to me because there are speakers somewhere that are on. And I thought it was the coolest thing in the world, and I never looked back. I actually thought I'd be an attorney at some point in my life. And
interestingly enough, Rick, because you don't know how many really great shows I did that I never hit the mic button. And I'd go like for 2 hours, they're like, this is my greatest show ever. And it was like, dude, did you sleep in this morning because we hear on the radio? I was like, what? I'm like, oh man, the mic button.
Yeah, no, that one's important. That it was weird too, because, and I don't remember this. I mean, I know at the Advocate, Becky, we had Lee Wood, who was kind of the driving force of the Advocate, and I mean, he was on us as journalism students constantly, and
he was your only professor. He
taught
every one of your core courses, and he ran the Advocate.
Yeah, so if he didn't like you from Journalism 101, you were screwed, because he was the only one.
It was a long 4 years.
But we didn't have that at the radio station. It was a rudderless ship. It was like,
you guys kind of ran yourselves, right?
Well, we did, and I mean, honestly, I think we had to go to Bruce to get the key at the beginning of the year to open it back up, and
we just never left the office, so we didn't let them lock it.
Yeah, I mean, so we that was how you had to get in, was somebody had to unlock it for you. And it didn't have a ton of members when I started it, but by the time I left, that 3 years afterwards, we had 100+ members.
Wow. Yeah.
And like I said, that digital board over there was something that we made sure that we did. So we kept improving it, but never did a faculty member come to us and go, we would like to be your advisor. They were just like, I wish this guy would shut the hell up and stop asking for money to improve this radio station. But it actually turned out to be, I don't know, the rebellious side of the radio and of my personality, I think actually made it a better place because it was like we're the organization that nobody cares about. And no offense to the programming award people, but you got everything you wanted. You always got to pick the concerts. You always got to do this. You always got to do that. The radio station was like, I know, I'm vastly outnumbered, but I loved the idea that we were kind of like the
like
chip
Radio
on,
Carolina.
Yeah, we're
like offshore radio in the
chip on our shoulders, just going. You know what? We're going to come in here and we're going to play what we want and do what we want. And then we even experimented out into like full talk shows and advertising. I got some advertisers on the air, and that's why I think they made the investment when they did. Yeah.
Let me ask a question, Rick. And so you may not know the answer. So was there ever in the history of WPJ a classical or country show?
There was definitely a country show.
Okay.
Classical, I don't recall.
Yeah.
There was definitely a country show, and this is such a cool melting pot. Becky and I are both from Pittsburgh, so country. We didn't have a country station in Pittsburgh on the radio.
Why wanna wait?
Until
Okay.
before that.
Don't take away my childhood.
No, 100. I'm pretty sure it was
WYDD's my childhood.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm pretty sure 100.7. The first time I'd ever heard a radio station stunt called itself K-Garth, and they played the No Fences Garth Brooks record. They stunted it for a month. I mean, it was like because it was the first.
If I missed that, tragedy.
Yeah, well, you would have been because you're a couple years younger than me. But that was the first time I remember hearing country music on the radio. But when you come to Johnstown, whether they were commuter students or kids that came from other places, there were a lot of kids that were into country music, stuff that I honestly had never heard before. So you'd have a couple of guys come in and go, "Hey man, we want to play George Strait." Play George Strait. Like we don't have any rules. Like just all I ask is that you show up.
Did you have playlists though?
No. What I did was we had I want to say it was called CMJ, which was the college music, and they would send you a disc with new music that was coming out, and they do that as you become a programmer, and we would get music sent to us all the time. So I would take those CMJ discs and I would listen to them, and I would make a burnt CD because I got enough money to get a CD burner, which I thought was the coolest thing in the world. And I would go, hey, if you're playing country today, these are the new country. These are new country acts, because I couldn't let them go into the studio because they would walk away. So if I burnt one, I could just save it and then make new ones when they.
I never took anything from the radio station, honestly.
Yeah, right.
I had no albums.
Then you are
no whatsoever.
But yeah, so that's how we did it. So there was no playlist, but it was like I just asked that you show up when you say you're going to show up. Be prepared, have enough music, and if you want to talk about something, just be respectful of the fact that there are different people here. Because college is the first opportunity that a lot of people ever saw someone who was a different skin tone than them or a different religion or something like that. So I thought we did a really good job of welcoming all those things. So yeah, there was country, there was a metal show. I mean, it was just like the metal shop that they did late at night, and it wasn't because I told them they had to do it late at night. They were just guys that stayed up late. So it was kind of cool.
Because when I was here, interesting in the '80s, it seemed like it was just one classic rock show after another. Like '80s was, and I can remember the Feared playlist.
No, we didn't do that.
You had to do a playlist like it was going to go somewhere, and it was like, if you don't have a playlist, you're going to get...
Well, we did report the songs that we played to CMJ, because that's how they figured out who was... So I was like, okay, I decided that these were the 5 songs from that disc that we were going to play this month, and it was probably one in each genre. One of my favorite bands all time I learned about here is the band Clutch. It's a rock band. They're not commercially successful on the radio, but they are have an enormous following. And I remember getting a Clutch record sent to me, and I'm like, what is this? And I listened to it, and I did steal it from the radio station, and I still have it.
Nice. Let's call back. Becky, what about you with the Advocate? Did you want to be a newspaper? Kind of focus on that when you came in here?
Oh, yeah. I was absolutely the opposite. And I was thinking that if they could see you, it's like on either side, you've got the little academic angel and then, the radio devil over there. But I did. I knew I always wanted to be in journalism, and I knew that it was, my forever. And Pitt also just was, but Pitt Oakland was not for me. I am a legacy Pitt family. My father, I applied to Penn State just to really get under his skin, but there was no hope there ever.
That was the rebellion phase.
That was my rebellious phase. Yes.
Nerd.
Yeah, I know.
That's what our niece is 16, and I've had her on campus already, and she said, I might be thinking Penn State too. And I said, hey, you need to determine the level you want to be in the will.
Yeah, exactly. You make the choices. They have consequences.
A lot or none.
You have freedom of choice, not freedom of consequence. But yeah, so I knew if I wanted to stay in the family, I'd go to Pitt. But I just knew Pitt Oakland wasn't me. And then I came up here and I fell in love. And this place, the big stone buildings but the storytelling. And it's funny, too, because I came here thinking I wanted to be a writer. And if you look at my advocate clips, I started out as a writer, and I started out as I have to be a reporter. I was a sports reporter, and if you know me, that's hilarious. But I fell in love with design, and I found my calling in journalistic news design. And since then, I have made an entire career just out of pagination and design of newspapers. And I would never have found that without Pitt Johnstown. And that's what I think is so cool. Like the Advocate, I started there and they sent me out to cover wrestling or rugby or whatever it was. And that was cool. But then I'd come back and I'd get to also do the photos. And then I'd come back and I'd also be writing my own headlines. And I'd be building the whole paper. And the next thing I knew, it was every part of it. And that's what I think was great about this place. And I loved it so much that I front-loaded all of my core classes. So like I took all my journalism classes my first 2 years. That way I was working as a reporter my junior year full time, and I was only taking classes 2 days a week. Like to your point, when I was here, the weekends were Advocate. Dave and I were talking about this earlier, but we would put the paper together on Saturday and then I would be off on Sunday, and I would schedule my classes so I only had classes Tuesday and Thursday, so I'd be off Monday. And that was like, my whole life was that place. I mean, that was college.
And it's such a unique opportunity too, because you got to see that vision of going, all right, well, this is what real life is going to be like. I mean, whether you work at a daily paper or whatever, you were able to start scheduling your life around what you wanted to do.
Yep.
And like I said, I did minimum amount of classwork so I could do maximum amount of radio work when I realized that I was in love with it. You don't get the chance to do that everywhere. And it changed, and look what it did. Look what it did for your life. It was awesome.
I consider it an apprenticeship. I mean, I was in an apprenticeship.
That's a good way to put it.
I feel like I did a 2-year apprenticeship under Lee Wood and Mary Zoller and everyone else who taught those classes. And Lee had us my first semester. He had us at somebody correct me on the terminology because it's been a long time since I've been up here, but at a township meeting. And that's what we did in Reporting One. We went to the township meetings. We didn't find a camp. Yeah, we didn't find a campus story. We had to go to the Richland Township meeting. Yeah. And we had to come back the next day with a story. And I'll never forget, in Lee Wood's class, you got an A or an F. You got if you misspelled someone's name, that's going to get you. Oh, yeah. That's not something you can do as a journalist. So that's an F on that report. Like on that story, that's an F. And one of the first ones I had gone to cover, this guy who worked for the township, he did like their salts on the roads. He bought all the salt for the township or something. His name was Ryan something.
Ryan Barker.
And
Ryan just retired a year or two back.
Well, Ryan saved my journalism career because Lee Wood would have wrote me off freshman first semester because I did not ask him how to spell Ryan when I interviewed him for my Reporting 101 class, and his mother named him R-I-A-N. Mm-hmm. And I would have gotten a first F and my only F if I had gotten it. But but that's the kind of thing that like you have to teach journalism students the importance of accuracy. Mm-hmm. And how do you do that? There was a way up here that put you in the fire. Yeah.
Well, you're right. When you mentioned earlier that Lee was our only professor, you didn't have you couldn't run to Professor B and go.
There was no playing your parents.
What should I do here? How do I get this to turn around for me?
Take so and so for math instead of this person because it's the same class, but it's a little easier.
Yeah, there wasn't that. So it was like, here, if you want to be a journalism major, you have to just go through the 6 or 8 whatever the core classes were with Lee. And it was tough. And you're right. From day one, it was like, here's some basic rules. If you spell something wrong, it's an F. I'm not even going to read it. And it was a big red F. And you do that. I just thought of something, and I want to share. I could sit here and talk to you. I could make this podcast 9 hours long.
I know. I want to give someone else.
I know. I feel like
they have better stories.
Because Dave won't come over.
I know.
He won't
one
talk.
of us needs to let Dave get in here.
So let me share my one successful journalism story turned radio.
He's coming.
So we have to write our senior papers. Like to your journalism final was 10 pages or something.
For what it's worth, I ended up being able to market mine into my first jobs, like first 10 articles.
That's outstanding. That is outstanding.
It was on No Child Left Behind, and I marketed that for all I could get out of it.
That's awesome. And actually, I never imagined, I mean, literally, I left here going, I will leave all of this behind, and I will just go into my radio life and do whatever. So my senior paper for Lee was about Columbine and how No, and because a lot of people blame Marilyn Manson for the influence over the guys who did the Columbine shootings. So that was, I thought, at least this is fascinating to me because it has a music element to it. Not that it was a good thing, but at least I found does rock music influence younger cultures to make bad decisions? You know, essentially took it that route. So fast forward 10 years later, I am at a rock festival in Charlotte covering for my radio station. And I have an interview with Marilyn Manson, who I had never met before in my life. And I have 10,000 questions. And it's a bright, sunny day in Charlotte. And they had essentially FEMA trailers set up because it's in a giant field. There's no locker rooms or place. So the tour manager comes and gets me and says, "Are you Rick?" "Yes." "Come with me." And he puts me on the stool, like in front of this FEMA trailer. He's like, "Wait here." And he opens the door, and it's all dark in there, but it's the middle of the day. So he comes back in, he was like, opens the door, and everything is covered in Dexter plastic. Black plastic. There are no lights. There's only white leather furniture, and Manson has the entire trailer covered in cut-up garbage bags because he does not want to see light of any sort. And I'm like, I can't see the buttons on my recorder to start. And he was like, goes out and gets a lamp with a red light bulb. It's really like, I'm probably going to die in here. Which was, at that point, it was like, well, what an interesting way to go. So Manson comes out, and he's pale and crazy, and if you know who Marilyn Manson is, you're not shocked by any of this. And he sits down, and we start talking, and he's doing his, I like to eat Bibles, and he's insane. And then he threatens to cut me into a fruit salad because there was a fruit salad on the table and a giant knife. I'm like, I don't know how this is going to go, and I don't know how to turn it. And I said, on a personal note, I wrote a 10-page paper about you when I was in college. How do you feel about that? On a dime, he absolutely turned into a real person and had a conversation with me for 20 minutes about how he felt it was unfair, how he felt like his music did not influence, video games didn't influence, and then he ended talking about his appearance in Sons of Anarchy with me. And I was like, all I had to do was write this stupid paper a decade ago, and I could have got this great interview to start. Meanwhile, the guy scared the hell out of me. So it was like, finally, like the only two things that ever really linked my journalism career to my rock and roll career were that paper that Lee Wood gave a C- to. Thank you, Lee.
Not an F.
Not an F. And I got my diploma 24 years later. So that was cool.
Fantastic. Well, I'm glad we didn't have to threaten to cut anybody up here so far
there's
today.
still time.
Oh, no, I'm not done yet. But thank you both, though. Let you enjoy the rest of the afternoon here and get to the dinner. But thank you both again for coming out.
Golden Quill.
All right. While Dave's sitting in, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Oh, hi, I'm Lindsay Yost. I graduated in 2010, and I am apparently the lone person from the UPJ TV.
Okay. UPJ TV.
Yes.
I'm trying to remember a lot of UPJ TV. I don't have... the radio station sticks to my brain a lot more.
Right.
Especially because I was a commuter, so I wouldn't have seen
Okay.
too much. For those who don't know,
Yeah.
how did UPJ TV function?
So
Was that Channel 21 on the...
I want to say yes.
Okay.
I can't remember at this point, but I know that we filmed during the week, and then they would edit it, and then it would play on a loop on whatever that channel
I remember
was.
the technical discussion we had because it was the internal debate of, because at that point Channel 21 was the Christian station on the cable, so it was effectively who gets knocked out, and it was the one where the little nun talks all the time.
I think when I got here, it was like the information channel for UPJ. But yeah, and then it would just be on a loop until we did it again.
What did you come here to study as originally?
Originally, it was elementary education.
Okay.
And then it ended up being communication, public relations, and advertising. But I was on the TV station all throughout high school, so I really wanted to do it here, and it was an absolute blast.
What triggered the change from education over? You kind of saw the program, was like, oh, I'm going to go do that? Or?
No, I had a 2.996 for for like 3 semesters, and for the education, you had to have a 3.0.
Oh.
And since they don't round up, I got quote unquote kicked out of the education, so I switched to communication.
Sounds like,
and I'm okay with it.
Sounds like it was more fun anyway.
It was a lot of fun.
Very, very cool. Also, Dave, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience?
David Hurst, class of 2002.
It's kind of good this is a fun event for me with you, because typically you were questioning me about Geisttown stuff when you in your role as a reporter for the Tribune, and I was in local government. This is great. The problem is you were actually pretty good to us, so I didn't I have no I don't have you on anything. How about you? Did you come in, Dave, looking at Pitt UPJ here as a always wanted to do the journalism thing, or
sort of, yeah. One in high school, the dream was to be on SportsCenter, and it's crazy thinking about it. I toured Clarion, and I remember liking their program, but something threw me off, and then I was like, well, you know what? I'm just going to start at UPJ for a year and see what happens. And funny enough, you mentioned WUPJ TV. Beginning of my sophomore year, a friend of mine who was in some classes was like, hey, we should start a TV station. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And he took the ball and ran with it, and I took the ball and ended up getting into print. But I was part of the production of the first newscast. And if I remember right, filmed, interviewed the band Fuel.
Oh.
That was one of the first. I stuck around for a couple assignments and then ended up falling completely into the newspaper. So,
what physical harm did they threaten you with? No, they didn't threaten to cut you out either. No. But that's kind of cool. So, when you think about these fairly connected groups, clubs, what's it mean to actually see people and come back and see how that connection's been kind of reestablished? But things change too. Like how's today been with seeing in the last day or so?
I've loved it. We only came this morning, but I mean, I'm also, I guess, the youngest one here from the alumni group. So I really don't know a whole lot of people, but I've gotten to know people, and it's been just great.
Did you also brought the youngest?
I
attendee?
did. I brought my 3-month-old. I did.
Looks like a little golden blue back there.
Oh, yeah. He has to.
Nice.
He has to.
Hey, we are already accepting applications, so we'll get a form filled out.
I will say it is easy because where we live, the school district is blue and gold, too. So it'll be through his veins.
What about you, Dave? What have you kind of taken in from the last hours?
No, yeah, great time. Great to look back at stuff. I mean, a lot of things. I mean, whether it was during the tour with you earlier, or being in here looking at old clips and stuff. It's like, oh my gosh, I forgot about that. It's a lot of that, and it's like, wow, how did I forget about that? Looking through the programming board stuff is funny because I remember a lot of that stuff, and it's funny how time goes because 25, whatever, I don't even know how many years ago it was now, oftentimes we were clashing with those guys because they were spending our money. And now it's, no big deal. It's pretty cool looking back at some of the events they had and some of the misses. I mean, I remember, just some of the ones that kind of fell like through no fault of theirs, didn't happen. I forgot all about those.
It's so neat, and that's one of the coolest things, and that's why I like coming up and doing these is and we don't typically even, you can't not have an alumni podcast and do it during this event, but the tours are always so neat because it's that, I saw it with the group going around today, Dave, like you just said, even with you, it's that click. Oh, I remember that person. There's something about being in that spot, and you just kind of you're back there. Whether it's been somebody who's been here 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 40 years ago. We've had people come through from the early 70s, and they're like, oh, I remember this hallway. I remember where this was. I met this person that I still talk to today. Right here. We were in class together. We were rattling off faculty names, folks that are no longer with us, that we were just, it's that odd kind of history and mental connection that a physical place has. We even talked a little bit about the smell Krebs has. That is just that it's like a new car smell, except not
Not a new car.
Not a new car. But not bad. It's just kind of like memories.
Mm-hmm. Right. Just hit you.
We have our next. We're going to keep everyone going, but go ahead, Mike. Introduce yourself to the crowd.
I'm Mike Mastovich, journalism major, class of 1985, 40 years ago.
All right. What's your story, Mike? How did you get here to UPJ?
Well, I graduated from Conemaugh Valley High School, which is right in the Johnstown area, and came up here to UPJ. And the first year I was undecided, and the second year I made my way into the Advocate and liked what I saw, and I majored in journalism and had Tom Russell as my professor. I've told many people that he's had more influence on my life than most people in my life. Other than my dad and a couple other people. Mm-hmm. He was such a great teacher who taught not so much with textbooks, but would say, "Okay, class starts now. You go out, cover your beat, you get your story, come back, type it on a manual typewriter, give him the copy." He put his famous red pen all through it, and that's you learned. You learned on the job, for lack of a better word, and it was a great 4 years here.
Manual typewriter. That's the way to do it. Bruce remembers manual typewriters.
Oh, yeah.
Where did, Dave, I know where you ended up career-wise, because like I said, you've been now with the Tribune for
13 years.
Because I've been gone from the Borough for at least 5. So where did you end up after WUPJ TV?
Completely different route. I went back into... I managed gas stations for a while, like the Get-Go's, and then I went back to school when I got my early education in child development. Oh. So I taught 1-year-olds for 5 years, and then the last 3 years, though, I actually worked for Allegheny County DHS CYF.
Okay.
So that's where I'm at. I'm doing administrative behind-the-scenes work, but I'm like the planner of all things, so I use a little bit of it.
Kind of.
I write newsletters. So for the does that stick with you? Do you? I'll do it still with local government after being gone for 5 years, and I'm just sitting. I'll read a story that Dave writes, and I'll be like, "Why did they do that? That's not how you would do it." Oh,
you
absolutely.
Still sit, look at TV, and why would they even think about doing that?
I do, absolutely.
Okay, good. It's not just me. And Mike, where did you end up after graduation?
Well, working with UPJ, I was a student sports information director, and that got me a lot of experience. And I landed at IUP as a grad assistant in sports information, got into the Indiana Gazette, and then November '86 started the Tribune Democrat, and I have 40 years in the business, 39 at the TD.
This is it's such a neat kind of that history where people think about and we see the change. We talked a little bit about how radio stations now a bank. Sorry, Rick. It's evolved. We get this. We get a podcast. TVs now, internet.
Right.
YouTube is the new TV, and really anybody could do a TV station with a little bit of stuff. Paper's kind of the same way. It's still the core components the same. It's just the technical wrappings around it.
Yeah, and just sort of the way people consume news has really changed the most. And I think more than ever, everybody in the world thinks they can do what you do, whether it's TV or print or radio or whatever. Like we're in this world now of amateur, like everybody wants to do it.
everybody, yeah, I can understand that because you're talking about there's no barrier to starting up a blog or a Facebook page or something.
Everybody has a phone. Everybody's an expert photographer now. So, it's just everybody's putting things out there on social, and you've got to compete with that. And it's an industry. We're trying to figure out a way to, transition into it because, the print end of it, while it's still one of our best features, you got to figure out a way to get people to read your product. And the younger generation is less likely to hold that actual newspaper, so you got to figure out a way to get people to engage digitally, and Dave would say that's what we're all working on down there.
If everybody had, if somebody had figured out the tried and true way to do that, then all the newspapers would be thriving wonderfully right now.
And it's still such valuable information, and it's what we try to stress is local. The stuff that they maybe can't get on ESPN, I'm a sports writer, or like in Dave's case, like NBC or CNN will have something. You want to get the local things that they still are interested in that they can't get anywhere else, and you got to find a way to present it interesting manner.
And that has to be very, very critical when you talk about and hear the concepts of news deserts and stuff. It's not national news. You can tune into any feed right now and see any congressional press conference or President Trump doing an announcement or a press or whatever. It's Johnstown City Council. It's Guystown Borough. It's things here at UPJ specifically outside of the larger pit system that people don't see.
Yeah, and that's another real glaring difference. I mean, I think everybody is way more tuned into national news than they would have been 20 years ago. I mean, everybody knows what President Trump had for breakfast. Everybody knows what the Speaker of the House had for breakfast, but they don't know, their fire department's a week away from falling apart.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk for a little bit to kind of talk a little TV for a little second. What did the programming look like through a regular looped broadcast day?
Oh, it had your normal, like the current events. We would scroll, we'd find a story that interested us, and then we would report on it. We had the weather, we had sports, we had typical people that would do those certain segments each week. I was just, I guess, a regular newscaster, but I did end up having my own segment at one time, which was really cool. But it was just...
Was it news focused or?
Yes and no. It was called A Quickie with Lindsay, and it was pretty much just sex education, kind of. It was also a lot of just making sure that you're safe in the world, not just like in intimacy, but being safe constantly. Yeah.
This is why I ask these questions. We get good stuff. See, David wandered off to find more people, and they missed all this good stuff.
Did you get a lot of feedback from that?
Because it was on a loop, a lot of people would see it in the middle of the night, and they'd be like, "Oh, this is really interesting," and like it was fun for me. I mean, one of my last papers that I wrote for school was on genital piercings.
Oh.
So like that's where my mind always went. I was like, what do people want to learn about? And that's what I had.
We also might have a show title. I did that for her, by the way. Being local may not be as much of as a shock being on campus. When's the last time you were on campus?
I was here probably a year or two ago, maybe.
Okay.
But it was just to stop in and see Sherry Ray. So, I mean, this is the first time I've actually been back on it. Probably, let's see, I graduated in 2010, probably since 2012.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and see, the problem I'm having is, so that's what, a handful of years ago? No,
Yeah.
It's more than that.
It's 15 years ago.
What did you all think of the changes that have been happening? I know our group went through the engineering building, which is new, and the nursing building.
Yeah.
And what's that like, seeing these changes?
Well, I love it. I've seen so much. When I went to school here, it was Krebs, Biddle, ENS, Sports Center, and the Student Union, basically. Mm-hmm. And since then, there have just been so many great additions in terms of academic buildings, the swimming pool area, and then the Sports Center. And I deal with so much with sports that the Sports Center is seeing the changes there. And then what's going to happen now that the campus has acquired the MetLife property, and there's going to be some big things happening there. So it's a small town campus with that great rustic setting, but it still has some big time opportunities and great academic programs here.
Because it's an interesting generational difference too from that, Dave.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I mean, you see that and it makes you feel good because, I mean, anybody that pays a little bit of attention to education sees what's happening in other communities. Money not being invested in their schools, or even worse, those schools closing. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's a good thing to see.
It's been interesting, and Dr. Spector will talk a good bit when he does his lectures or conversations to us as the alumni board or anything else about how he had a very long-term plan of lean. And in 10, 12, 15 years ago, it was like, why are you being lean? Because this was coming. And like you said, David, there's a lot of schools that are selling off buildings, tearing down things, shutting, putting closed signs out completely. And
right.
We're good. I think this is a great time. I don't want to suck too much of the event because I could just sit and talk about these stories forever. I love doing this so much. We started a podcast about it. But I want to thank you all for coming and spending some time with us today. I know there's going to be dinner a little later that anyone listening doesn't get to enjoy. But thank you all of you for coming and spending some time with us today.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you
Thanks.
for doing this.
No, we love to absolutely do this. Great turnout. Some of the cool things that we've seen kind of hanging around is interesting is the first Advocate computer is actually a little Macintosh. Little Macintosh sitting there. We got the soundboard up. All these things that are kind of those connections to history and the to have something that is beyond just a memory, but actually the physical nature of it. When you talk about having these advocates that sit in your office, David, but having and people going through and looking up stories that they were a part of or they wrote is really cool.
It is, because it takes you, back to that, like, this is part of you. So it's, it is kind of cool because it's, like I said, you came in and you took this very seriously.
Yeah.
Just like any other, it's no surprise, whatever major you were in. But this was a very active, very learn as you go kind of a degree for the most part. But sure, yeah, it's neat to see people go through the advocates, go through the yearbooks. We've got the programming board scrapbooks, years of those, which, again, people poured a lot into those.
I don't know if we've ever talked on the show, David. Why did you pick journalism? Why did you pick journalism?
Boy, that's a good question. I think, I was coming up in the 80s, and it was just one of those things where, I tell you what, I think one of the things, honestly, that probably put me to journalism, I had very poor math skills. So I can remember going to my college guidance or high school guidance counselor.
Okay.
And him saying, here's the things that you fit into. And journalism communications was one that had no math. So I think that's what pushed me toward that choice.
Interesting. We have our next round of guests. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
This is Kathy Collins, Kathy Waite from UPJ 97.
All right.
I'm Kathy's older brother. My name's Jim Waite. I graduated in 1985, and we were both program board people.
Okay, programming board. We talked because I actually heard you talk at the breakfast this morning that you were first, and then kind of we're gonna gently persuaded. Is that the right?
She had no choice.
Okay.
I came here for freshman orientation, and very scared like everybody else there. And then I just hear, Kathy Waite, where's Kathy Waite? And it was Bruce calling me up to the stage because he had to get me on the programming board. I thought I had to sign up the way he was, persuading me. He's like, your brother said you're on this. He gave me a T-shirt. So that's kind of where I got started.
It tends to be what we do here. We just draft people until they say no or don't show up anymore. Let's talk about both of your histories a little bit. What drew you originally to UPJ? Well, we know you didn't have a choice. But how did that process start for the family?
I was recruited to run cross country here.
Okay.
And that's the main reason why I came to UPJ. So I ran cross country for a couple years, and then got injured and jumped into programming board as like the thing to do with all my free time. So,
for both of you, since programming board is certainly a universal type thing, as with most of the other things we've talked about today, although they tend to be more concentrated with the journalism and humanities degrees. What was your degree in?
Business economics.
Okay.
I was computer science.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Nice. So this is kind of a neat treat to see how those departments went through. You got to see all the business plaques hang in Biddle, I guess.
Yep.
What made you choose those majors?
I don't know. For me, I knew when I was going to go to college, I was going to be a business major. I liked it in high school. Like I took a couple classes that were accounting related and, some other business classes in high school, and I liked it. So
that makes sense.
Yep.
Now, computer science is going to be a little different. That may not have been a...
No, it was not. It was more very much getting started when I was there. So I did some programming, like command line programming in high school and everything, and kind of liked it. It was like puzzles to me. And I started out as a computer science major because I thought, if anything else, even if I change my major, I'm going to need to know computer stuff. That's what I thought. So I stuck it out, and it actually formed my career. So,
what did the career end up being?
I was in database DBA, and then I went on to I'm working at Pitt now, 19 years in Pitt IT.
Okay.
I've been there, and I'm
She runs the show.
Yeah,
at Pitt, main campus.
lead integration architect's my title. So I do a lot of computer integrations for all of our systems across all campuses, actually.
Neat.
So.
Neat. And you talked a little bit at the breakfast. Did your career kind of got a kickstart from Bruce?
Absolutely.
In a way. So why don't you, if you don't mind sharing that with the audience, because I think that's a really neat story.
Yeah, so I was a building manager in the game room and opened the game room and gave out the skis and the rental DVDs back in the day. People would actually get the machines, Yep. They didn't have them. And the story was that I went through an interview process with Kmart, and I remember the guy who was hiring me or on the interview said, as soon as you start, we're going to have you manage the blue light specials at the 6 different stores. And I was just like kind of rolling my eyes because, I just didn't see myself being that kind of a person. I really liked what I was doing. And so I went back and I remember having a conversation with Bruce. And I honestly never, ever thought about, can you do what Bruce does for a living? Be an advisor to student programming boards and stuff. And when he said you could do that, I started asking a million questions, and then Dean Schaefer helped me out too with looking at graduate programs. And I got into IUP, but everyone kept saying Western Illinois University is the best program. If you go there, you'll get a job so fast because it's the most competitive. And I interviewed, and I didn't get in. And I was slated to start at IUP, and I literally was days before I left, I got a phone call that somebody dropped out and I was an alternate, and they asked me if I wanted to go. A week later, I was sitting in grad school, totally crazy, and I've worked in 40 years in higher education, I've worked at 11 different universities.
Oh, wow.
But my last 2 roles have been in alumni relations. So I was, from 2008 to 2018, I was the director of alumni relations for the Katz Graduate School of Business at Pitt, Maine.
Okay. Yep.
And the dean there left and became the dean at the Kogod School of Business at American University in Washington, D.C. So I went with him and became the alumni director there. And so that's what I've been doing for 15 years. But before that, I was student activities, student unions, Michigan Union, University of Kansas Union, University of Toledo, University of Missouri, all over the Midwest.
I think that it's not only that's just like a pure Bruce story, because that's just kind of how I could see that conversation happening with Bruce. But it is something that a lot of people don't think about is people get these jobs, whether it's alumni relations or helping run programming and student life activities or teaching. And we are kind of all three of us in the PIT system at some point, or similar type jobs. Is you don't really think about it when you're a student is this is a person doing a job that I also could do. And that's always kind of...
I think working at a university is great quality of life. You know, you have the summers are slower period for some of us, and the getting the nice break over the holidays, that kind of stuff. It's nice.
It is.
Yeah, I have family here in Pitt IT on this campus.
Okay.
And it's like, no, summer's not relaxing.
No.
What is your role here? Yeah.
I am on the geosciences and business faculty.
Okay.
And head of the alumni, co-president of the alumni. I have a family member that's head of technology here on campus. And that's their summers are just like hair on fire. But for us, this is very casual. I love it. You're 100% right. Summer's great for me. My online class is going nice and smooth. But both of you have been, I don't want to say away, but have been out for a longer period of time. What have you made of the changes, seeing the campus tour? I don't know when the last time you would have been on for this amount of time on campus, if since maybe graduation.
Well, I came back here maybe 4 years ago with my roommates. You know, 4 of us, the girls, came back. It was a blizzard. I could barely see.
More accurate.
Yes, it was very typical. But we did walk around campus, and we didn't get to go in any buildings or anything because it was closed. So this has been a great visit because I actually got the tour and got to see all these new facilities. And my goodness, I mean, the sports center blew me away. That's and then it was nice because it was a lot of new things mixed with a lot of things that haven't changed, and that was very nice. So.
Yeah, and when I was living in Pittsburgh, I did come up to the campus a few times, mostly for business-related stuff with the Alumni Association and stuff. But the last time I was on campus was probably 10 years ago, so it's changed a lot. But it's interesting, you know, we're walking through the townhouses and stuff, and it's like, it definitely hasn't changed in a lot of ways too, you know, like you still have the feel of the campus is still here. I love it. And I'm a huge log cabin guy, so it was so fun to go down there and see the log cabin. I hadn't seen that in many years.
That's a interesting, it's very generational, the log cabin. And simply because with the nature of it and having to be offline through the requirements to get that back in working is the people that remember the programming events and stuff log cabin, there's a passion with that building that just the building emanates that passion. Even just sitting empty, it's still it kind of echoes with that history. What kind of stuff happened for both of you with programming board?
We had some great acts. I mean, the 90s had the best bands, and there was just local bands, smaller bands that became big bands even. We had Rusted Root, Violent Femmes. We brought in Nada Surf, and like just the Clarks, Browning Mary, Gathering Field, all these ones that are great from Pittsburgh bands. And then comedians. I mean, I loved meeting comedians. Like Norm Macdonald was one of my favorites.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
He was a funny story because he was down at the sports center, and we were kind of shooting hoops with him in the back while we were waiting. And he went into the room, and if you know about doing these events, you have like a rider that comes with a contract, and his was to have turkey sandwiches and something like that. And then, in true Norm fashion, he said, "Another turkey sandwich? What the heck? My agent asked me one time to have, what do you want to eat?" And I was eating a turkey sandwich, and I was like, "I like turkey sandwiches." Now I get them everywhere I go. It's just his way of telling the story was hilarious. It was so real. And yeah, those are the fun stories. But then even like with riders, we had Rusted Root, and in the 90s you didn't have the internet like Amazon or anything, and their rider was so specific of like organic baby food and everything. I drove down to the Strip District in Pittsburgh to pick up the stuff on their rider because that was the only place I could get all of these very eclectic things they had that they wanted to have for their food. So that was fun.
That's neat.
So, just to piggyback on that, we had so many amazing acts when I was here, and a couple of things. I'll tell you a funny story that I remember. My roommate's freshman year, and I was just a committee member. I wasn't really on programming board too much, but there was this comedian coming into the cafeteria, and it was Valentine's Day, and it was $2. We were charging $2, and my roommates were like, I'm not going to pay $2 to watch some guy who played a gay person on TV. And it was Billy Crystal, you know? And it was like, I just remember, and then he went on Saturday Night Live literally the next week. He was here, and then he went on Saturday Night Live his first week after he was here. Wow. It was crazy. But like one of the memories I have is that as a student, I was given complete responsibility for everything. I signed contracts. Like, it's unheard of now. I signed the contracts. No. I remember, like, Eddie Money, it was a roadie show is what they called it, and so they would want to be paid in cash because they wanted to pay out all their roadies, so they did the show here after they were at West Virginia the night before us, or something, and I had to pay, like, $13,000 in cash and paint it out in a van in a parking lot behind the students at, the sports center. Sinbad, I remember bringing him in.
Oh, wow. That's another great one.
Leather, and then like the bands were definitely the big hits, with Romantics and Jay Gow's band. Both of them had the number one song in the country when they played the student center or the sports center. What I Think About You was number one, and I forget the other song that was for Jay Gow's band. Centerfold came out right when it was down there. So
it's that has and even me being around campus for so long, those stories about how those things have changed through the necessity of whether it's times have changed, technology has changed, legalities and stuff has changed. I'm just trying to imagine any of our student groups just like, here's cash.
Yep.
And being all three, being in that higher education world now, it would be, oh my goodness, people's hair would be on fire for.
So in 81, my freshman year, the first day in the dorms, we had a keg in the basement of Maple Hall, sponsored by the Residence Hall Association.
Oh, really? Nice. Yeah, no, that's not going to happen anymore.
Yeah, but we were calling the agents and we were making the deals. I mean, I remember putting it on my resume, when you come out of here, and it was like that was my people skills was coming from, all the paperwork and forms and working with agents. And, I remember I got Programmer of the Year for being, programming board and having my shows. And then I got asked all the time because I went into programming on the computer. And they thought I was Programmer of the Year from like a computer science club.
I was curious because I know David had mentioned at the Mimosa brunch that somebody had sent him the contract that was signed with the police, and he actually has it framed and hanging in his office. And it's funny, Bruce knew that number right away. It was $225. Like he knew, he remembered. I looked while we were standing there. If you want to buy the complete collection of their music on Amazon now on CD, it's $90. It's only $90 less than what it cost to have them here who play at the time.
Yeah.
So if you it's like $135 on Amazon to get the full CDs.
I've talked to a couple of people that were at that show, and they said that it wasn't anything spectacular, like because they weren't known. No one knew their songs, so it wasn't like they came in.
And you're doing a show every night for how long?
And they didn't play cover music. That's what people didn't like. So
over and over and over again, and it's just kind of like, okay, just play the song, get back on the bus, drive around. But it's pretty neat. I want to thank you both for coming and spending some time both on the show and here with us today. And it's always glad to
Thank you for having us.
happy
This has
endings
been a
happen.
really nice weekend.
Well, again, thank you both.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for letting us sit and share some memories. It's great.
No, glad to do it. Glad to do it. That's why we do the show. I did want to grab Jeff Martinelli, who's been on the show before. Hi, Jeff.
I have. Hi, how's it going, Matt?
Good. I wanted to to grab you as you were walking through because you're part of the committee that helped put this together. What are you thinking actually after how many months of getting this to work?
Yeah, so this is a great success. Absolutely thrilled. We had 40-some people sign up and show up. Had a great night last night, a pre-mixer to the event, and everybody's here today reminiscing, going over old times, and hopefully building some new relationships as well. So it's been a great success.
It's been fantastic just to meet people and see some folks and see some of this. It's interesting watching people. I've been watching while we were recording here, people looking at the advocates for stories they wrote.
Oh, yeah, for stories they wrote, stories that you forgot you wrote, having wrote some of those stories, having written some of those stories. But, yeah, forgetting all about those things and remembering how big of a deal it was at the time. But here we are 40 years later. I can hardly remember doing that, right? But it's just very cool because other people bring their memories into it and you share it and you find out, those things come back to life, but then you realize people younger than you went through the same things by reading the other editions of the Advocate. So it's been very, very cool.
I think that's one of the neat things that stands out is how many different generations I see.
Yeah.
Here. It's not, David talked when we first came on the air, is some of these reunions we do that are always great, but they're very narrow. Here's one group of folks that were here for maybe 4 or 5 years. They know each other, and they come,
Right.
and we love those folks. But this is something that's a little different. It's from decades of
multi-generational, right? And so last night, I'm here with my wife who I met here and was on the Advocate with her. My roommate, I see them all the time, right? I've worked with them all the time for the last 40-some years. But last night, I met 3 individuals that served on the programming board in the early 2000s and shared their stories, which are funny and similar to the stories that we had, but different ways that they went through them. It's fantastic, and I think that's the appeal to it, is the ability to meet more people, build that UPJ network, right, which was about a place that's special to everybody that went through here. And, obviously it is, and, a minute or two on campus, those memories start to flood back, and you realize why it's so special.
Yeah, I've mentioned it before, but just watching people doing the tour is always fun to watch people, and they click. I had that class in that room, or that's where I met so and so,
right?
And it's just even no matter how many times they can update the building and change the floor.
Yeah.
We were walking through Biddle. Wasn't this used to be like white with speckled? It's underneath the carpet now, but. It immediately comes back.
Now, the student union's been renovated for years.
Yes.
For probably decades. But when I was here, this Camry room was a game room.
Yep.
And I spent, I was either in the sports center or the student union or in my room pretty much 100% of the time. I was very, very, very little in the classrooms. As little as I could possibly spend the time in the classrooms, that was me, right? So I was spending a lot of time in the student union in the gym. But the student union, it just always amazes me every time I come in how the building was remodeled and how it looks completely different than what it had before, which is a cool thing because then it starts the memory going of, didn't this happen over here like you're just saying? This used to be, the game room. This is where I saw the guy from America playing a concert here. So you get to see those different things. This is where this corner that is wide open now used to be a movie theater, a small theater to watch videos on. So it's just very cool to get back and see those kind of things. So when you're going on a tour, you get different experiences. I know my roommate Ed had a son that went to school here, so he got to see a little bit more of it. But there are some things that he has not seen since he's been back. So that's awesome.
I think it's a great event, and it's great to have everybody. Anytime we can get alumni back on campus, I'm glad to do it and glad to be out and have a chance to sit and talk to people and enjoy and welcome them back. And I want to thank you and your committee for taking the time and the effort. You guys did a lot of work with David to make this happen.
Thanks. Yeah, and huge accolades to David for pulling this together, keeping us on track and keeping us focused. Mark Bursick, who came to UPJ, probably started about the year after I left, I think. just did a tremendous job of reaching out and grabbing people and contacting them and letting them know what was going on and what was happening. And so, kudos to him and Bonnie. My wife Betsy was on that, Bruce as well, and Sherry, and I'm probably missing somebody, and I feel terrible that I am. But yeah, so it was those meetings were fun. Those meetings that we had,
they were always story days.
Once a month, yeah. So there are always stories, but you learn something new. You hear some new things about people that you probably honestly had forgotten about.
Well, that's the funny thing is I always knew when those meetings were because the next day would be David would be telling me stories. Like I'd come into the office, hey, what's going on? Or he'd stop by my office on campus, and he's like, oh, Bruce told this story, or Jeff was talking about this last night, and I'm like, cool. And I knew I'm going to take a half hour, sit and listen to David tell his story because they're always so cool. When you guys,
and so what was cool,
planning.
just working and getting some memories together. David, Bruce, and I had a meeting that lasted 4 hours, and it seemed like 20 minutes. But it was the funniest meeting I've ever been in my life, and it was hilarious, and we had a lot of fun and a lot of great stories. Some I'd heard, some I'd never heard.
Yeah.
But that's what makes it special. So now I got more memories about that meeting in and of itself, right? So it is just very cool to be able to get back, to be able to see people like Bruce that mean so much to me. It's just a great event. It's a really good time.
It's like I said, it's fantastic. I'm glad that you thought of us from the podcast to have come here and talk to folks.
Yeah, and thank you for doing the podcast. I mean, you do a great job with the podcast and do a great job of getting it out, and the topics are fantastic. To come out here and set this up and do this for us, we greatly appreciate it. But we know it's obviously for that bigger goal, right? It's for everybody else with UPJ ties and want to stay in touch, or help us advance. So
I love doing it.
It is very cool that you do this, and thanks for coming out and setting up and doing this.
We were glad to do it. You mentioned your wife's here.
Yeah.
Since your last appearance, did she want to come on and rebut anything that you said?
No,
Are you in trouble? Should I give her some airtime?
No.
I don't want to be equal.
I actually sort of cut her short on that last time, but she's probably used to it after 40 years. So.
Jeff,
so that's just the way it goes.
Good seeing you. Thank you.
All right. Great seeing you. Thanks so much for having me on.
We're going to kind of see. I'm seeing if anyone else wants to get on. No? We're going to kind of get things rolling here as we approach the dinner hour. But again, I wanted to thank everybody who came out and made the afternoon special, spent some time with me, and David to sit down and tell their stories and kind of document it. That's why we do this. It's a part of the history now that we're building this Audible show, this podcast to make our history something that everyone can be involved in. And if you've got a group, if you're anybody who's out there who has a group of friends, a organization, whatever it is, you can come and we can help you with your own event here as well. Again, just a kind of reminder of this calendar coming up in July. End of July, the Pirates game, UPJ night at the Pirates, will be link will be down below. You can register and come spend some time with us at the ballpark, and talk about groups. And I forgot about this earlier, so I apologize. But at the end of September 25th, we are holding a alumni education event, and that's for continuing ed sorts of things. They're going to have a guest speaker in education that bring those things, just like last year, bring concepts talk about things, let alumni teachers connect with the current students. That'll be at the end of September. And at the same day, kind of as it's not a combined event, but we're going to be kind of doing it at the same time. Will also be the official kickoff party celebration brunch for geosciences, geography, environmental sciences, GIS, and geology. Now forming one team, and we're going to get all our alumni together to kind of kick that off. So those are the upcoming things on the calendar, just to kind of wrap things up. David, any final thoughts from you for today's event?
No, just, again, I've always said it. These things are a success when alums show up. So, a lot of people even today, they want to see it get bigger. They want to see it continue. There are plans in the future. We're not sure what those are going to take yet, but to continue, how do we get, this particular affinity group, this combined affinity group, to continue to do things together. But hey, heartfelt thanks to all the alum that come out and make these things success, because you and me being at them just gets boring after a while.
No, it's great when we talk to the number of stories that we've heard today, and we have maybe 2% of them on the podcast now.
Yeah.
So if you want to hear all of them, you got to come to an event.
Sure.
So keep an eye on all the social media as well, because that's how you find out what our schedule is. The Facebook, the LinkedIn. If you see this somehow and your contact information isn't up to date,
Yep.
do that too. So other than that, I'm going back on summer break, David.
Hey, Matt, thanks for coming out of Summer Nation. Or hibernation. That was a combination. Summer and hibernation.
We'll have an episode or two more through the summer just for fun.
All right.
But other
Look
than that,
forward to it. Thank you, Matt.
We'll see you all down the road. The Tuck Shop podcast is recorded live on the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown campus. Update your contact information with us by visiting johnstown.pitt.edu/alumni. Connect with us online via Facebook and LinkedIn, or consider donating to the university at giveto.pitt.edu/giveupj.
This has been a production of Quantum Wave Media. Views expressed do not necessarily reflect the opinion of the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown.